It is 6:58, and we'll start the building committee. Agenda items 2.1, construction report on the performing arts and natatorium. Sylvia?
Yes, sir. So tonight, Mr. Weller and I will give you an update on what we're currently doing for the natatorium and the PAC as well. So we briefly discussed last time about the geo piers and the building not being in the correct place. It has also been confirmed that that is true. We do know that when it comes to the PAC, they are still unearthing 2 of the geo piers in the back. I know that there was water in there, so they had to go ahead and dewater it, so it's a process. We do not have any information yet about the NAT. We do know that the geo piers and the PAC are 5 feet off towards the school, towards STEAM. And then we also know that they're 1 foot back. The building is not where it's supposed to be. But the geo piers are, they don't know it 100%. Some of them are under the building where it's supporting it.
And that's on the NAT, right? Because the PAC, we still don't know.
That's on the PAC.
That's on the PAC. The NAT
And
is-
so the cement's on there, so what they do, and not to interrupt you, because I had to ask too, because it's kind of like, so what they do is they look at the exposed ones, and for the exposed ones, they start looking at the grid, the original GeoPier grid, and they kind of place the building on that grid to see if, because it's under cement, right? To see if the building is on top of that pier. And they have certain GeoPiers that support more weight than others, right? But we do know that the building is off, but some of the GeoPiers moved with the building. At first, I didn't know what that meant, but it means they're also off and under the building, okay? But we don't have the complete evaluation. Now, on the NAT, they're still evaluating it. We do know it's 5 feet off and 1 foot to the back, so it's in the wrong place as well. But there, the GeoPiers have not totally been evaluated, and so some of them seem to be to the side. So what does this mean? And I'm going to let Mr. Weller talk deeply about it, or more deeply than I am. What does it mean? At the minimum, we know the buildings are in the wrong place. They're 5 feet off, both of them. We do know that there's going to be ramifications. One of them is going to be we need to redesign. We need to redesign the parking lot, we need to redesign the drives, and then there's going to be ramifications when it comes to the utilities. So because of the drawings and the renderings that they have, these are precise calculations, so those are off. So we know for sure there's going to be a redesign. We know for sure it's going to be more time, and we know for sure that it's going to be more money. So when we get the entire report, we'll have it for you all next Wednesday. We'll have Mr. Alex here as well, and he will be able to get very granular about it, and we will have the final results. But like I said, right now we know that both buildings have shifted 5 feet to the right and 1 foot further back. So they did not place them where they were to be placed initially.
So, Mr. Pejon, right now you said something. You said that there will be an additional cost on this. That
Correct.
cost is not coming to the school, is it?
It should not come to the school district.
Okay, good. I just wanted to clarify
Mr.
that.
Weller, do you want to add to it? Because there's more.
I can confirm that from all indications, this is a construction means and methods issue. The location of the building is the responsibility of the contractor and the contractor subs and consultants. And so, no, the district should not be bearing any expense associated with corrective measures to address this issue. And it was a topic, or it was an issue that was first discovered by the district's structural engineer who brought the topic up. The district, since having its consultants bring the issue to our attention, has handled the situation very proactively on a step-by-step basis, not jumping into any conclusions about any things that need to happen or don't need to happen, but going about it systematically to see whether, to the extent there's an issue and what needs to happen to address it. So the district has notified the construction manager at risk, Davila, of the problem. Davila is aware of it. The district went out and engaged its own independent surveyor to review the location of the buildings and make sure that the issue is fully investigated and properly resolved. The surveyor determined and it indicated to the district that the PAC and NAT footprints of those facilities are not in the exact specified locations as called for in the construction documents. Sometimes they moved to the side to a certain extent. They rotated off where they were intended to be. And if you can imagine the site, it's kind of a puzzle with different components set up to surround the building, like utilities set up in specified places. You have driveways and curbs, parking areas and landscaped areas set up in specified places, all in relationship to the exact anticipated location of the building. And so if the building is off even a little bit, it has implications that may require the district to move other aspects of and redesign and relocate to a certain extent some of those building components. And that seems to be something that will occur here. So the surveyor notified the district of what was going on. In some places, the buildings are maybe just a little off. In other situations, it's communicated to us that the building may be as much as 5 feet off. So the district looked at the situation and recently made a determination on the recommendation of the project architect that the diagnosis of the concern wasn't advancing quite quickly enough because we wanted to make it a top priority. So on the recommendation of the architect, the district exercised its rights under the construction contract recently and directed the CMAR to temporarily stop work on the natatorium, all other work on the natatorium other than work to address this issue and determine the extent of any problem. And as soon as that's determined, they'll be allowed to proceed forward again, assuming that's consistent with any recommendations from the district's consultants. So to the extent anything is necessary to happen, the district's going to fully evaluate it, going to make sure that everything is fully certified by all the appropriate consultants, including probably GeoPeer, the structural engineer, probably the geotechnical engineer. Everybody's going to make sure to weigh in and give the district the correct steps to address the issue. And no more than necessary, but absolutely no less than is required.
I have a question, Mr. Villon.
Yes.
When he comes back the next week, he'll do the evaluation and he'll let us how to move forward in this
Correct.
project? Okay.
Correct. So, and we want to be very sure that we look at the structure, because we don't want any kind of structural situation to happen with either one of the buildings. Like I said, the best case scenario is where we have to redesign, we have to shift the parking lot, shift the drives, shift the utilities. That's the best case scenario. I don't even want to think about the worst case scenario, but that's the best case scenario. How it is that the buildings got, like Mr. Weller said, 5 feet off the mark and then 1 foot further back than they should be, I guess that hasn't been determined, but I know that it is, as far as we can see, a contractor's situation.
I definitely hope for the best scenario because
What is the worst scenario then?
what is the worst scenario?
You said the best. What's the worst?
Destruction.
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 Starting.
I mean, it's obvious.
Start over?
So I guess when
Yes.
it's kind of unfair to talk about it right now, because the architect is gonna come to design this project. I need a better understanding from him, and I'm gonna ask him this question, he's gonna see this video. What I don't understand is throughout this process of them constructing, who's responsible for evaluating it, Mr. Weller? I mean, you saw the contracts, I mean, I don't understand how it got, because I'm not in construction, but through the process, there has to be some type of oversight on either the architect that designed it. Is it his responsibility to make sure that the contractor is on point? Or is it the contractor's responsibility to hire someone to evaluate his work to make sure that he's following the architect's design?
It's an engineer, isn't it, Mr. Weller? I would think that's an engineer thing. I'm
The
sorry.
engineers, but the contractor's engineers or the contractor's surveyors, and then assuring, it's a construction means and methods issue.
I got you.
It is within the contractor's responsibility to make sure the owner provides the specifications on the site, specifications from the architect and the civil engineer, and they delineate where the building should sit. And then it is the contractor's responsibility to build a building consistent with the design documents and assure that they have the consultants necessary to make sure that that's happening.
Yeah, like oversight throughout the whole process, right? Okay, sir, I got you. Thank you, appreciate it.
That's the information that we have and has been communicated to us. And there's been no suggestion to date that it's anybody's responsibility but the contractor.
Yes,
Please
sir.
keep us
Okay.
posted on this.
Thank you.
Mr. Albion, so are they telling you that they're gonna be at 100% sure to be able to give you full details by next week?
Yes, it was the rain that's delayed them, and because it does,
Yes, ma'am.
it gets flooded there, so we have to de-water whenever it does rain. Now, remember, these are holes also, so they had to de-water them. I do know that if somebody hadn't visually seen the geopier was way off, maybe we would have not, but because they were inspecting, I know ROFA was out there and they were inspecting, that's how they came across it. That like, why is the geopier over here, but the building's over here?
But my question is, if they were inspecting, how could it come to now?
Well,
That would have been during the framework, not after you throw foundation. So I don't understand. If they are inspecting, somebody missed it. That's all I'm saying. I mean,
I'm saying that they saw. I still think it goes, I know it goes back to engineering. Now, let's just think of something that's something we dealt with, the parking lot, right? So when we did the parking lot back then, we didn't have a design, right? But then we got the design, so somebody designs it, but then we hired engineers to make the calculations, because after the design is made, that engineer is gonna say, it goes right here,
you
right?
gotta stay within boundaries.
Correct. So this is an engineer thing to me, because they had a design, but then you have the contractor that gets an engineer, and now here's the design, here's the calculations, right? Real precise numbers and calculations. Now I'm coming in as the engineer, and I'm gonna put that on top of the geopiers, because you have the grid, right? That says, here are the geopiers, here's where these two corners go, et cetera. So that's why and I guess Mr. Weller substantiated that it's engineer.
The contractor's engineer,
So
Correct.
going
So
back
it's
to,
contractor's consultants that assure.
So it's a contractor's risk, that's basically what we're saying, so it's their responsibility to make it right. Good,
so
okay.
going back to,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly, so
Yeah.
going back to that, the worst case scenario, we have to demolish and start over, especially having to realign the foundation and stuff, where basically, that's not the district's responsibility necessarily, that'll be, these people are bonded, aren't they? So that's on them.
Their insurance will cover.
Okay.
The only, and besides the fact that, there's delays, I think that that's a big deal, because we're already at June 24, so this would be another delay. And then again, we have to wait and see what it is, is it the minimal delay, or is it going to be a more lengthy delay? And even if they're going to go ahead and cover it with their insurance, the bottom line for the district is that's more time we don't get into those buildings, and that our kids can't use them. And I know that today, when I went to the high school, some of those high school kids thought they were gonna be using the buildings, already. And I go, okay, well, in June 24, I think we'll be getting into them. And so I know they're very anxious, because they've been hearing about them for a very long time.
I want to clarify something with you, Mr. Rion. Is what I understood correctly, they're going to have the full report by next Wednesday.
Tuesday, no?
Wednesday.
Oh, Wednesday?
When
Oh, man.
is Wednesday
Thank
our
you for
meeting?
letting me know.
Wednesday is our regular meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that's my question. So we should know,
We have everything.
okay, thank you.
You know, what's concerning to me, though, Mr. Rion, and, is that, like you mentioned, it almost sounds like we stumbled into this. So what if we hadn't? What if ROFA hadn't seen the geopier that was uncovered and the building wasn't aligned to that? I mean, again, I hate to be pessimistic at this juncture, but, I mean, if they hadn't caught on to that, we would have continued the upright construction and no telling what may or what could have happened. So, and again, I think that whoever, whether it's ROFA, whether whoever it is that's doing, you know, the additional inspectors or whatever, we need to be kept abreast of this information and make sure that if we're going to continue moving forward, that, as I mentioned before, that these buildings are being built safely and that we're not gonna have any major things happen, you know, to the building and/or students and staff once they're occupied.
What I would say is that now ROFA has more oversight on the project because they've been helping us as a project manager. So ROFA has more oversight, they've been more involved, more hands-on. And so with that being said, that's why the additional inspection's happening, because they're walking around, they're making sure things get done. And so, that's where we're at with that. So that's how ROFA's involvement, I guess, discovered, you know, their discovery
Well-
was because they've taken that oversight, function of a project manager.
So I guess my question to Mike Alex next week is like, if you design something and you're part of the team here, you know, I just don't understand is where is the disconnect between making sure that the building is building according to his design? That's what I don't understand. And then all of a sudden now, he comes in, and now they're off. Wait a minute. So you guys are working on multi-million-dollar, you know, designs here, okay, buildings. I mean, you know, there has to be some type of timeline that we're missing here. And it's not, I mean, we can go in circles with this because we probably don't know the whole truth behind it all, but that's my thing, is where is the lack of communication here between the architect and Davila and his staff when it comes to building these buildings? There's a massive disconnect here, and it's very obvious. So now it's like, okay, well, now it's going from here to here on what can happen, you know, and it's kind of, you know, nerve-wracking, to be honest with you. But the thing is, that's what my question is, Mr. Avion, is, you know, that's what I'm gonna ask him.
I can address a little bit of that, and I'll let Mike speak for himself, and we can certainly look, you know, and examine, you know, everybody's contract, but typically speaking, you know, the architect is responsible for the design of the building. And the design professionals, to the extent that they notice construction deviations on site as part of inspections, they are supposed to bring those to the attention of the owner, which I believe is what happened here. But it is not at all standard to have the design professionals under contract to make sure that the contractor is building the building down to every specific spec. That's not something you would see in a standard architectural agreement.
And so
That is something that's left to the responsibility of the contractor. That's part of the contractor's means and methods.
And that's exactly what I was going to say, that looking at their contracts, you can see that they all have very specific things that they are looking for. And so now that we've kind of broadened ROFA's scope, and we're going to talk about that the next board meeting, is just that we broadened their scope, so they're looking for other ways to help us complete the project. Now, let's remember, because I don't want us to get confused, because I know that there's just like a lot of misconceptions and a lot of people that will go out there and say something different. This did not happen recently. This happened back when they started laying the foundation for the PAC. Mr. Cole is right here. He's going to the OCAs for me. And so this happened way back when, over a year ago, when they're starting to do this, right? So let's not get confused and just say like, okay, it just happened now, and, you know, it's ROFA because, you know, because they're doing it. No, it's right here from the go where it wasn't done right. And I want to be very clear, because I don't want anybody confused, and I do not want to give any misconceptions to our community, because if there's any calls and emails that I get, it's about the buildings and what's going on with the buildings. And then there's Chair. But anyway, but the whole thing is that, you know, that's like the big thing for the community, like what is going to happen with these buildings. It seems that every time we turn around, something else pops up. And I want to, you know, just be very clear with them. I want to be very truthful and transparent with them. And I don't want any misconceptions out there. That's what I asked for, you know? So next time we come here, where Mike will specifically delineate everything, I think that's when we'll have the clarity for the community. But is something wrong? Yes. We're just hoping that it's over here, like, you know, nothing that we're gonna have to do something major for.
And either way, whether it's the minor thing, the best case scenario or the worst case scenario, we're gonna take care of it, and we're gonna make sure that these buildings are done
Yeah,
correctly.
what we really want to make sure, and I guess the reason we're really, not, I know the reason we're really delving into this deep is because we want to make sure those buildings are structurally sound for our kids and for whoever walks in there. We don't, I mean, if we have to, you know, break apart the foundation, oh, well, so be it. We have to do it, right?
Yes, but,
I
I
mean-
mean, but that's without being said. I mean, these companies, you know, that's a responsibility. You know, and for us to be sitting here and having these conversations going back and forth, you know, they need to come here and they need to address it, and they need to explain to us, and they need to explain to the community, because they're the ones that are getting paid for this. So they need to be very clear on what happened, and, you know, I'm more than sure it's not just one person's fault. I'm more than sure there's gonna be, it's gonna be an issue with, yeah, whatever. But anyway, thank you, Mr. Leon. Thank you, Mr. Weller. Appreciate it.
I
Thank
think we
you.
need to wait until next week
Yes, no, we are waiting.
before we start
We are waiting.
having discussions.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Great idea.
Very good.
And next we, oh, who's construction? Sir, I'm sorry, I'm getting it.
2.2, update on high school fencing. Mr.
Flores,
Flores,
he has more great news for you all.
great.
Give us great news, Mr. Flores. Give us great news.
How
No,
many
I'm being,
How many fences
I'm
are we
being
tearing down, brother?
No, nice. Can y'all hear me? Can y'all hear me? All right. Well. Can y'all hear me? Test. All right. Just making sure. Somebody was cutting me off already, and I haven't even started talking. All right. Good evening, Board President Moreno, Board of Trustees, and Superintendent Ms. Cervillon. The first is, no, I'm not asking for money yet. We're looking, not yet, but this is just an update for the fencing project for the high school and the progress on the fencing at this time. So as you guys recall, the total cost is an $83,000 project, a little over $83,000 for the fence. We also had about a $9,000 addition, $9,000 addition that was for labor portion for the courtyard pieces, which is all coming in together as well. So based off the last map that we were looking at, everything with a star is essentially the areas that we were covering within the high school, just to make sure that we covered the inside and try to prevent anybody from actually just going in. So here are some pictures of the fence line that you all approved. So right at the start, we do have the poles already up as of today, and those are actually going to be the nicer style fencing. So it's a montage style fencing that will be on there. So if you go to the front of VMA, that is a montage look. That's what you're going to have placed at the front of the high school.
That's just at the front of the high school, correct?
This is going to be one part, but yes, at the front of the high school will have the montage look. But you're also going to have a mix with some of the black vinyl fencing that will
Okay.
come in to kind of merge with that as well.
Okay, thank you.
So the continuation is this gray fence that has been here forever is actually coming down. We are placing the poles are going up. They've actually are a lot straighter now over by the end of the day. But they're building the fence from behind, and that way we have the fence line to provide the security. Once that fence line is up, it will be the montage look, and then the gray fence will come down because we will have the fencing to provide the security piece. This is kind of a side view of the chillers, so a continuation right next to the gray fence. It's already placed on there. There's still some work that needs to be done to this fence. It is an 8-foot fence, and each one of those gates is about 300 pounds. So just to give you an idea of weight, Currently, what they're gonna be doing is, underneath, they will be putting some, wheels so they can actually wheel them around. On the left-hand side by the gray, fence, that you have, we do have a pole. They have about 5 feet of fencing that they need to place on there, but once we do that, the yellow, barrier that we initially had, there at the high school will be removed. And, from that, these, gates will be closed and opened as needed. But just like we have the barrier that's closed during the day, the gates will be closed to prevent anybody from going over to that side of the campus,
And
which
these-
will lead you over to the Kate area.
These gates are manual or they're,
They're manual, yes, ma'am. So.
Can you do them automatic? I'm just kidding, just kidding.
I could.
Sir, I got a question. I don't know if this is inappropriate to ask at this moment in time, but as far as this fence, this additional fence, how is it gonna affect the parking? I know at the high school, parking, or maybe it's not, I'm sorry, it's not, it should be intended for you. Sorry, sir. For Ms. Hervion, the high school parking's always been kind of like a minor issue, right? Like, for example, like when the staff leave and there's only one area open, or how does that all, with this whole
Traffic
fence? Yeah, traffic flow, yeah. How does this all,
The fencing?
yes, ma'am, does it have anything to do with that? I mean,
No,
impact it?
We have people that go in and they open and close them for us because I know that with the wheels and everything, they'll still be cumbersome, because I used to do one like that myself in the old days. But I do know that we have our staff, our security that will secure them. But I think what you're asking me is that since we have a lot of traffic of athletics, yes, we close them at a certain time. Correct, Chief? We close them at a certain time. So we have someone that goes out there and closes them. That way it doesn't have to be a teacher. Sometimes it may be a coach, because we give them keys as well. For like, if they're gonna get there really early or leave really late, we'll give them a key.
Plus, we have security out there whenever we
Correct.
have a gate open, so.
Correct.
we're covered.
Correct, and the gates that, if, going back to this, the yellow barrier that you have there, that stays closed all day. It's shut down during the day unless they have something going on, they will open it. The only difference is that we'll be removing that yellow barrier and the gates will be placed there. And those yellow barriers are a little heavy as well, but the gates will end up, they'll be able to close them and open them as need be. This side of the fence is over by the guard shack. As you can tell, on the right-hand picture, you do have the 8-foot fence to provide any, we just had those little yellow items on the bottom, the little poles. Those are gonna get removed, but for the most part, we now have that area blocked. Some portions down below that there are gaps. Once the gate is finished and the fencing is finished, they will go back and they will make sure that there's not a gap underneath. And we're still in the construction phase, so there's still a lot of things that they're still working on. Down on this side, you see the gate on the left-hand side. That is the closing gate. There are 2 of them, just like the other side of the exit entry area. That will be used with the guard shack, so after hours, they can go ahead and close them and secure them. The fence line that was actually along the sidewalk, that fence line was the pedestrian fence line, which was about 4 feet. That fence line has been removed, as you can see there, and then it is actually going to be an 8-foot fencing for that pedestrian crosswalk, but it is also to help on the other side with the fencing, so nobody's able to just jump over a 4-foot fence. Across, you'll see some poles in the distance, but the poles that go up to A wing, those poles are gonna also be the montage style of a look that we're looking at. There will be an egress door that will allow still the pedestrian traffic to come through, but we will have those in place as well.
Mr. Flores, right there, if you go back to that picture, right there by the guard shack.
Yes,
You
sir.
said you're gonna remove those small ones, the small cement ones?
Yes, well, they're made out of steel, so we're looking at removing them, including the yellow barriers that are there. Those will get removed once the fence is up and operational. But we're not gonna move anything until we have the fence up and
I
running.
mean, I'm just saying those by the guard shack would be okay, in my opinion. It's just an extra barrier. If someone were to decide to try and drive through there, they're not gonna go in. I mean, they can't knock down our fence because you have the steel things there, right?
Yes, I mean, it is, we've had a conversation about it, and it's something we can still continue to review. The concern that comes out of that is that with the intruder auditor, they will see that as an opportunity for somebody to stand over and be able to use it as a boost. So we've had that with other fence lines as he's gone over and conducted the audits, that anything on a fence line, either on one side or the other, can be used to be able to jump over a fence easier. So this is the reason that we're heavily leaning towards removing them. I mean, the barrier piece, we definitely, we did think about that, but unfortunately, I know it's on the inside, but if, God forbid, we had something going on, it would allow for somebody to jump over the fence a little easier. So instead of an 8-foot fence, we would be, we're probably gonna be looking at about a 4-foot fence, 4 or 5-foot fence instead.
The fence line along the canal, and that's okay for now, or it'll have to be?
That fence line is actually not our fence line from what I understand. I will be presenting just a little bit about that, but it belongs to the drainage district. They've created a fence line on both sides of the drainage district or drain that we have there. So that fence line, we don't have any control over, short of us building a fence alongside of that fence line and going along the length of it. But I will tell you that as long as that fence is up right now, it does have a topper on there, which does have the barbed wire on the top, both sides to prevent anybody. There is a spacing area that I did bring up to their attention during my meeting, and we're gonna be closing off that spacing, just to make sure that we allow the drainage to go through. But that is, other than that, right now, to not absorb another cost, that fence line length, it's an extensive fence. We would be looking at an expensive amount. About 8 feet. So so according to the state, if we look at a 6 to 7 foot fence line, 6 foot minimum, you still need a topper up on the top. The Y, which is a little Y that you have up on the top of the fence line, but it will eventually, it's essentially to make it not scalable. You can also place little slats on the inside, but that alone, you might as well just build an 8-foot fence because you're going to be putting a lot of plastic all the way down. So the 8-foot fence is the highest that the state is requiring by doing this. This gives us a little more leeway with fencing, so if the state decides to make a change with fencing guidelines, that at least we are at 8 foot, which is the max of what the state is requiring.
Speaking of the state, had the state come and looked at our campuses?
They have, we've still conducted, or still conducting intruder audits through the state. We have, we still have a couple months for them to continue to conduct them. To the last of the information that I received from the audit, or the auditor through Region 1, is that we are going to be looking at the great majority of our campuses that will be audited. I can tell you right now, thankfully with the support and teamwork across the state, we have had 0 findings at every intruder audit that we've had with our district.
Very good.
Thank you. So this is a continuation of the courtyard. We are going to be they're working on customizing the gates for this. But as you can see, this is the black vinyl 8-foot fencing. On the back, we left the purple metal fencing that was once there, has been there for a while. So we've just went ahead and utilized the rest of the space to enclose a special education area. Backside M, so you can see here's a fence line. 8-foot fence, black vinyl, but again, they're still working on this fencing. So as you are going to see that these crosswalks will have an opening to be able to allow entrance. I have met with Mr. Isasi numerous occasions to discuss how we're going to control student traffic, but those are questions or things that we are looking at currently and determining the flow of traffic for students, which this is a big flow of traffic. But by securing this area, it prevents a lot of students from going and a lot of people from going in, thereby closing the campus. So we are looking at those pieces as well.
Mr. Flores, in case of an emergency, what is the width of those doors, the regular doors? I mean, are they just standard, or did you go a little bit wider? Do you like for, I don't know, emergency?
They're all going to be ADA compliant, so they will go through, and we just had this question today regarding the front entry doors. if they were wide enough. And so the way that the hurricane fence is doing is that they're reviewing it. I actually walked over there, took a wheelchair to make sure that it would go through. It did.
Perfect.
They're adjusting to make sure that it's not gonna have any issues with fencing, and to allow anybody from not being able to go out in the event of an emergency. The same is true here. So they've actually had already checked the backside. It was just the front side that they might need to do a little adjustment, but nothing major. They're approximately about 3 feet 2 inches, because I did the measurement today in width up in the front.
Thank you.
You're welcome. This is the only other thing that we do have. If you recall, we had nothing but cattle guards, green cattle guards, that were used as barriers. We kind of got a little tired of the cattle guards, and so as a result, our welding department has done a fantastic job. So they have actually welded all this, placed them down to the concrete, and they're pretty heavy because they were actually using backhoe to actually put them down. They're slowly getting primed and painted. They will be painted black, but it will give a barrier between the students and the buses. And this is going to go all the way down towards the special education side of things. But just to let you all know.
Who chose the color black? Principal?
The principal, and speaking with him, he was looking at purple and he was looking at black, but because the fence line is black, he wanted to keep it streamlined, and it's a little more classier look with the colors, so it doesn't contrast with purple and then black on the backside. Any questions for this side? Anything with the high school fence? Are we good? See, I didn't ask for money this time.
It's always the last slide.
Now,
It's the
now
next
here,
slide.
now here
That's
comes
my
what
bad. She's
Dr.
over there
Cruz
hiding.
was
I know she
asking.
is. All right, so in looking at the fence line, the estimation of completion, we are looking pending, I know we're gonna be looking at some rain, so pending weather, they're looking at Thursday, completing the high school fencing, with the only exception is the frontage road exit. So Greyhound Lane, frontage road exit is not, we don't even have poles there, and I'll explain the reasoning for that in just a little bit. So we're kind of looking at 4/10, give or take Monday, pending weather as completion, and with that, that would complete the high school project. The bus rails, we should be done by mid next week, so that piece of the project will be done. So going back to the frontage road, Greyhound Lane, we had a situation that we came across that we started realizing, who does this fence belong to? And so we started making some calls, made contact with our Cameron County Emergency, Tom Hushin, and he provided me a number for the drainage district to make contact. I did have a meeting at the high school with the superintendent of maintenance out there, and in speaking with him, we ran into, well, guess not. Yes, sir. So it is, well, I apologize. Thought there was some pictures in there. So on the, so we're looking at right behind the Cameron County appraisal area, that whole Cameron County building where the JP's at. There is a road that we actually have. We have a road that goes all the way to the frontage road. So in speaking with the maintenance supervisor, the question that I asked was, can we put a pole near those fences? And the answer was yes, we can put a pole and then we can stretch our fence lines. So that was the delay that we were looking at. So we're gonna be working on that. But that actually led into some other issues. He brought up a concern, which I spoke with Ms. Servione immediately after this. It's a concern regarding the road that leads out towards the frontage road. That piece, one of the fences, is actually falling in towards the canal embankment, which is apparently when you get the hurricane waters and all the flooding, that's where all the water goes through for the city, and it goes all the way around. So the gentleman provided, for some odd reason, did pop up on the.
Okay.
I do have a thumb drive, we can put it on there.
Well, I think because you need the picture so they can see what's
Yes.
going on.
No, we can picture my, it's where, right next to.
Just draw it out. Just draw it out. It's the one on the west side, southwest side, so. You want GPS coordinates?
So in looking at this, this is the fence line that I'm talking about. So unbeknownst to me, as I was asking questions, he informed me that we actually have an agreement that was signed between the school district and Cameron County Drainage District. This was somewhere time back in 2007. So according to the agreement, it is extensive. I handed one to Ms. Servillon and I sent her an email of this, but it says that we are in control of the centerpiece. The concerns that have popped up have since then kind of been a little more. It's not just about the fence, because as we walked up to the fence line and went over with our maintenance coordinator, Albert, and also with Mr. Cole, as we walked over, we looked. The fence is falling because all the erosion is taking place along the side of the road. The side, all that concrete is starting to crack, and it's starting to shift. So this is an up-close view of those two items so y'all can see. That hole doesn't do it justice, because if you look at it, it actually goes down pretty deep, and it's slowly starting to erode. So that is getting very close to the, it's getting very close to the street, the exit.
So what is the water district gonna do about it?
Well,
No.
according to them and according to the agreement,
It's us.
School district responsibility.
correct, that's what we've been told. So this is pictures of the rest of the fence line on both sides. This is exactly what we're having. So this being said, there is, if you look at the sidewalk is kind of going up and down. It's, there's one side, it's dropping down a little bit. It's all along the side of that fence line.
And our kids use that sidewalk to get into the school, right?
Correct, and we also use buses that exit out that point. We have parents that exit out that point. So the concern is, how bad is that erosion and how bad is it under the exit points of that street? But I'm not an engineer, I'm not, I don't have that capability. We would have to look to see what the board will decide and what direction you want us to
What was
continue.
the date on the agreement that we signed?
If I'm not mistaken, it's 2007.
Would that be something that maybe Mr. Weller can look into, that agreement, to make sure that we are responsible?
I can forward the email. It was, they sent me two forms with one of them that was stamped.
You want to go
with
ahead and give them
Cameron
the agreement?
County. Yes, I can.
Go ahead.
Ms. Evelyn, how can we be responsible for the structure, for the,
I don't believe it's a structure for us. I think it's gonna be the fencing and the roadway, and initially what the maintenance superintendent mentioned was for us to fill it with dirt, but I think if we do that and we're replacing the fence, it's gonna go back to the same thing. It's not gonna, this is not gonna just, let's throw dirt into it and it'll hold.
right, because it looks like the structure of that barrier there on that drainage ditch is what's failing.
Correct, so that piece, I wouldn't be able to, but this is a copy of the agreements that I received from the drainage district.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
And as you'll see on one of them, you'll see that it was Cameron County, it's gone through the clerk and stamped into, so I can send this to Mr. Weller.
Either way, we're bringing it forward so that we can see what we need to do to resolve the issue. I know we'll need to get an engineer involved, And that's gonna be something that we want to address, again, for the safety of our students.
So the agreement was, they made was the district will be responsible for everything?
According to the gentleman, that's what he ended up telling us, is that it was the district that was responsible. So the question that I asked was, are we talking about this whole fence line? But initially, according to this gentleman, that it was these, inner fence lines to prevent anybody from falling in. That at that time, the county was looking at making that irrigation ditch to go all the way around. And the district asked to, according to him, that it would come, we needed an exit point. We needed another exit point for our high school. Thereby, the creation of the road that we have to exit out the French Greyhound Lane was created at that point.
Yeah, that was at the same time. That was at the same time that the La Palma entrance was opened up.
I believe so, I wouldn't know.
But is there any other way, I mean, to get rid of this? I mean, is there any other exit or entrance that we can start working on?
We have a couple of other, we would have to restructure the traffic. I mean, sitting down with chief and with the principal and Ms. Servillon, so we can look at it, and definitely with transportation, with Ms. Martinez, Director of Transportation, because it is gonna deal with her buses as well. We have been looking at the possibility of looking at redirecting traffic. That was one of the proposals that Mr. Isasi and I and Ms. Martinez actually had with him to discuss the flow of traffic for the upcoming year. But this might actually expedite this, pending if we do have to go through an engineer to see if we needed to shut that down, or depending on the work that needs to be done. But we do have La Palma's exit. We do have the 2 entry exits that we do have with the school. Just kind of like a football game, where we restructure some of the traffic flow. It unfortunately would be different for us to be able to do that, but we would be able to handle that. Currently, we just need to figure out what we're going to be doing with this piece, and then we can look at the traffic at that point.
Is it the width of this lane? I can't recall. Is it 2 lanes, incoming and outgoing, or is it just one?
No, it's 1 lane coming in, 1 lane going out, from what I see.
Okay.
So two lanes total is.
I think what I remember is we needed to ask the people that, the irrigation district or whatever, the Cameron County, for permission to cross over there. I wasn't on the board at the time. I was on the board, but I think I remember that, and that's why.
Well, this is very dangerous. If this thing was to cave in, can you imagine?
Yeah. From your perspective right now, would you suggest maybe closing that entrance at this moment?
That would be my recommendation until we actually receive word from an engineer. Going up there and standing up against this hole that I showed y'all, just standing up by that hole, the dirt was already going into the hole, making it wider. So the only concern that I would have is to the extent, what extent underneath, if this is how deep it is all across, I don't know.
You don't want to.
I just don't, I would hate for this to just, you
There
know.
goes Ms. Martinez. I do want to say something before Ms. Martinez come up. I do want to say that we would have to really evaluate, because if you're going to use that other exit on La Palma area, that's a long way for our kids to drive out, and things can happen. So I want to be very, very sure that we really evaluate the situation before we jump to, just say like, let's close it.
And also the students walking home.
Get home, go that way. Okay, Ms. Martinez, your opinion.
My opinion is that we do not know if this road was actually engineered for the weight of the buses. So that's another factor. Not all roads are made to hold the weight of buses, so that could also be something else that we need to look into, and an engineer would let us know if this road was properly made for the weight of the buses. That's my concern on that topic, using that entrance.
Okay, so
Do
we
you-
need to evaluate it.
Do you currently use that entrance for buses?
Yes, we have 44 buses that go in and out
On a daily basis.
on a daily basis, every day during shuttles,
Do you know the
tutorials.
thickness of the
Asphalt?
asphalt and all that?
That's what we don't know on this road. We don't have that details.
Mr. Cole?
Cole?
But Mr. Flores, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but the road hasn't buckled, correct? It's just a sidewalk that's buckled.
It's
And
just
if
a
I'm reading
sidewalk.
this correctly, the way I'm seeing it, it looks like what we're responsible for is east to west, not so much north to south. At 50 feet, you could move that fence line 50 feet back and we'd be away from the water district on a north to south. East to west, we are maintaining the road itself. I mean, that's what I'm seeing here. Yeah, what? Oh, no, I didn't know you were disagreeing with me. That's what I was saying. I mean, maybe I'm incorrect, but that's the way I'm reading this. On the distance, the footage and so forth.
I think we need a further evaluation. I think we do need to get an engineer involved, and that way we can come with options, and then we can also have, the road evaluated. Not that I'm dismissing what you're saying, Mr. Corona, but if that in fact is true, that, you can bring that up also. We can bring it up to them like north to south, if that's something that we're not looking at as an option. That helps us out a lot, but we still need to evaluate that road, because if we have any apprehensions about it, we want to make 100% sure we should be using
And
it.
that's a very important road for us, so.
So have you noticed something different on your road?
No,
On the road, just a sidewalk?
No, just a sidewalk.
It's been there for 13 years, so.
And I've noticed, I have seen in other former districts where it was through the canal and it started that way, and when a big heavy rain flood came in, it caved in. So my bus that usually went, there was a sped bus, stopped, and it was like from here to y'all's distance when he noticed that the water was already, it fell in. So that's my concern, when I was reviewing that, and Albert took me out that way to see what they were looking at earlier that day. I said, I don't even know if this road is engineered for busway. Could be just for regular traffic, car traffic. Could also be causing the shifting.
The only other thing is that I know that on part of that asphalt, you do have indentions. So the weight of the bus, if it's been about 13 years, the weight of the bus, it's causing those indentions. And those you'll see on the inside as you're making the turn coming in on Greyhound Lane. So we do see that, but again, there needs to be a lot of evaluation that comes in before any decisions are made. Personally, when I came over, I'd seen the fence kind of like this, but it wasn't until it was brought to my attention by the drainage district at that point.
So could you find out from the water district what the length of those culverts are underneath that road?
I'm sure I can. I just need to schedule a meeting with the maintenance superintendent and see if he can provide me the details regarding.
That's gonna give us a huge advantage to know exactly how much, of a culvert we have underneath there that'll sustain the wind. Right, that's what I'm saying. I'm wondering, are they going all the way through?
They're going all the way through.
Oh, so then it is.
There's a concrete culvert that the road's sitting on.
Gotcha. It's not just the land level, so it's sitting on the cement, okay.
That's why I was suggesting that we kind of have the attorney look at that agreement to make sure who is responsible for. Is it the water district? Could it be that they haven't maintained that? I don't know. It's something that it needs to be looked at by the attorneys and professional people that deal with this type of work.
Correct. And I can actually forward the email with those two documents over to Mr. Weller.
okay.
Perfect.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you,
thank
sir.
you very much. Y'all have a good evening.
I have committee concerns. A constituent approached me and he told me about Ms. Martinez at Transportation, that they didn't have enough bathrooms, that they were locked and blah, blah, blah. We went over there and they weren't locked. But she showed us some bathrooms that have showers and they're not being used. Maybe we can provide more restrooms for them. That's my idea. What do you think, Ms. Servillon?
To convert them into more
Yeah, more
restrooms,
restrooms.
more toilets.
More
Yes,
toilets.
I mean, if it's feasible,
Because they're there
if
already and
you
they have
have the
water.
need, because you have the ones inside, come on, Ms. Martinez, and you have 7 outside. Do you feel like that's a current need for your
Yeah.
people?
Sorry, Brittany's short. We have, we have looked into it, actually, gotten some of our in-house personnel to start giving me options.
Okay.
And I think the cost is up to 20,000 right now if we do it in-house. And that's breaking down the concrete, taking out the tile, putting in new tile, the carpentry, the plumbing, and, you know, that kind of work that's gonna take into it to get it done. But it's feasible. I mean, it'll be a summer project, like, that's what they would have to dedicate themselves to working on.
But it's a need. You see it as a
We
need.
I have 52 employees at maintenance, 71 with transportation, and then 6 purchasing. So we have a good number of people. They don't all come in at one time, they come in bunches. Yeah, sporadically throughout their shuttles. I've never seen a line waiting to go into the restrooms, because if they're not in the building, they're in the one closer to the maintenance and purchasing. So it's just a matter of,
That you gave us. It was an awesome tour.
my pleasure, sir. Anytime
Thank you
y'all
so much.
want to go visit.
Well, they will help.
you.
A few extra will help.
Yeah, you would help. And we are considering, and I believe it's a topic that we've discussed with Mr. Saldana and Rene, Mr. Flores, as that being our hub in the event of an emergency. It has showers, so of course we would like to make sure we keep at least 2
Yeah.
showers on each side. They had come up with a different idea, and I said, you are thinking that with the privacy, this isn't a high school, we can't make it that type of a shower where, you know, with curtains and stuff like that. I said,
Yeah.
this is our superintendent that might shower there, is what I told the gentleman. They're like, oh yeah, we can do this. So they're excited. You have to understand that our team, we have great personnel over there. When you give them a project, they're excited to work on a project like that. So they're just gonna wait for the okay, because they wanna convert that into some more restrooms.
Including Ms. Martinez took us to a project in-house. They were doing offices, right?
Yes.
On their own time and with their own things and.
Leftover material they've created, they just had like plywood, that was their office. And so I was looking for 2 gentlemen, and they were sitting there drenched sweat, they've already been working in the sun all day, and they go in there to do their paperwork, and doing what they need to do to close out their work orders. And I said, why are you all in here? And they're like, boss, this is where we come and do our work. I said, don't we have leftover material that you all, on rainy days that you can't go out and work, you can work on creating your own little office? So they did. They found tile and insulation and sheetrock that was left over from other projects, and now they are building their own little nice cubicles in there. And somebody mysteriously found some mini splits, so now they have air conditioning. Yes.
Ms.
Very
Martinez,
grateful.
I got a question.
and that's all kudos to you also, because in order to lead a team that wants to provide work, you have to provide that environment for them as well. So I just want to thank you for the job that you've been doing for us.
Thank you, ma'am. I really take pleasure of doing what I do. Operations is my passion, and I like doing it. So thank you very much to all of you for giving me the opportunity.
Ma'am, I got a quick question for you. I know you pretty much already hit the topic, discussed it, but how many, I'm just trying to wrap my head around how many restrooms you have there? And how did this conversation come about?
With the restrooms?
Right.
So there's 4 stalls in our building, and there's 5 stalls out by the maintenance, in between maintenance and purchasing, and that's on each side for men and women's. Okay? So during COVID, we were doing the COVID thing, lockdown, ask dispatch what you're coming in for. Open the door, we open the door for them and whatnot. If you really want to know all the details, I'm going to tell you here, and
No.
So let me chime in.
No, the only reason why I'm asking is because, I weren't sure that when these buildings were built, there was an estimated amount of people, that were gonna be working there and then all this other stuff, right? So is this, I guess my question to you, ma'am, and it's a simple question. I guess my question to you is this being an ongoing situation where you're seeing that you're needing more restrooms there for the staff? Are they,
Employment has increased, so.
there's more personnel, yes.
There's more personnel now? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Martinez.
Thank you.
Next item, 4.1, adjournment, 7:57.
No.